Most professional organizers won't tell you this, because it's how they get you to hire them again. You might think they hand you every trick in their toolbox, but the truth is, there's a layer of strategies they quietly keep to themselves, especially when working with clients over 60 in the United States. These aren't the flashy tips you see on Pinterest or in home makeover shows. These are the subtle, behind-the-scenes moves that make the difference between a home that stays organized for a season and a home that stays organized for life. If you've ever paid for help only to find your home slipping back into clutter months later, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the kind of insider playbook professionals rarely share, because once you know these methods, you won't need to keep calling them back. We're talking practical, senior-friendly, life-proof changes you can start today, without spending another dime. And before we dive in, hit like and subscribe, because this is your inside pass to the kind of clutter freedom most people never get to see. Coralyn Finch had always prided herself on being organized. At 67, this retired school librarian from the rolling coastal town of Newport, Oregon, still had the sharp mind and gentle patience that served her through decades of guiding students through dusty stacks and card catalogs. But in her own home, the story was different. Over the years, the bookshelves, closets, and cupboards had quietly filled with more than she realized. Gifts from well-meaning friends, keepsakes from her late husband, stacks of craft supplies for someday projects that never quite began. In the last 10 years, Coralyn had hired 3 professional organizers. Each time, they swept in like a small miracle. Furniture got rearranged, bins were labeled, surfaces gleamed. For a while, she felt light, like her home had taken a deep breath. But 6 months later, sometime sooner, the paper piles crept back. The kitchen counters started catching just for now items again. Drawers became junk drawers without anyone meaning them to. And each time, she'd call another organizer, write another check, and start the cycle over. The part that gnawed at her most wasn't just the money, it was the nagging feeling that she was missing something. Why could other people keep their homes neat year-round, while hers kept slipping? She followed every instruction they gave, used every container they recommended, yet the results never stuck. One rainy afternoon, over coffee with an old friend, Coralyn finally admitted her frustration out loud. "They make it look perfect, but they don't teach me how to live in it without it falling apart." That's when her friend, a retired real estate stager, leaned in and said, "That's because they don't tell you the real tricks. The ones that keep them in business." That sentence changed everything. From that day, Coralyn started digging, not just for organizing tips, but for the quiet, unadvertised strategies that seasoned professionals use behind closed doors. She found habits that had nothing to do with buying more storage bins, and everything to do with how you interact with your space. They were senior-friendly, low-effort, and designed to last years, not months. This video follows Coralyn's journey as she uncovers the hidden playbook, 7 specific secrets that professional organizers rarely share with clients over 60. By the end, you'll see exactly how she broke the cycle, kept her home truly clutter-free, and reclaimed not just her space, but her peace of mind. Secret 1. The Anchor Zone Rule. Coralyn's first big discovery was something she calls the Anchor Zone Rule, a simple but game-changing concept that professional organizers almost never explain to their clients, especially seniors. When Coralyn hired organizers in the past, they focused on making everything look beautiful, matching baskets, color-coded labels, perfectly folded towels. And while that looked great on day one, it didn't give her a clear system for living in that space. She noticed that within weeks, things would drift. Her reading glasses might end up in the bathroom, the mail pile might migrate from the counter to the dining table, and keys could be anywhere. The clutter didn't explode overnight. It spread, like a slow leak she couldn't stop. The turning point came when she learned that the brain, especially as we get older, loves a consistent visual landmark in every room. Not a whole shelf, not a complicated organizer, just one small, designated spot where the essentials live and never move. This anchor gives your mind a visual cue, reduces decision fatigue, and makes it nearly impossible for clutter to take over. It's like having a trusted lighthouse in a busy harbor. No matter what else changes, you know exactly where to look. For seniors, This is especially powerful because it works with natural memory patterns. Instead of relying on mental energy to remember where you put something, you train your brain through repetition and visual reinforcement. The moment you enter that room, your eyes know exactly where to check. Coralyn started in her kitchen, where the daily search for her phone, keys, and reading glasses had become a running joke. Instead of scattering these items across multiple logical places, she put a single decorative tray, about the size of a dinner plate, on one section of her counter. It wasn't big enough to become a dumping ground, but just large enough to hold her essentials. Now, no matter what else is happening in the house, those 3 items live there, and only there. The effect was immediate. No more wandering from room to room muttering, "Where did I put them?" No more digging through purses or coat pockets. The tray became so ingrained in her routine that even when her grandkids visited and moved things around, she could reset the space in seconds. She soon added other anchor zones throughout her home: a small wooden bowl on her nightstand for jewelry she wore daily, a slim basket by the door for outgoing mail, a single hook in the laundry room for her reusable shopping bags. Each one eliminated a potential clutter hotspot before it could even form. What Coralyn loves most is that this method isn't about buying expensive systems or completely reorganizing a room. It's about creating one dependable, non-negotiable spot in each space that acts as the home base for your most used items. The simplicity is the magic. It's so easy to maintain that it becomes automatic, even on busy days or low-energy mornings. And here's the part professional organizers don't tell you: this rule makes their own job easier when they're staging a home. But if they taught it to every client, they'd have fewer repeat calls. Coralyn now swears by it as the single easiest, most effective way for seniors to stop clutter creep for good. Secret 2: the 6-month Propbox. Coralyn's second revelation was something she wished she had known years earlier: the 6-month Propbox method. Professional organizers often use it quietly in the background when staging a home or helping a client downsize, but they rarely explain why it works so well, or how you can do it yourself without paying them to return. Here's how it works. Instead of deciding on the spot whether to donate, toss, or keep an item, you put it into a clearly labeled box, your Propbox, and store it somewhere out of the way, like a closet shelf or under a bed. The catch? You don't touch those items for 6 months. If you don't reach for something in that time, that's your proof that it's safe to let go. Why this is such a powerful tool for seniors is simple. It removes the emotional pressure and the fear of regret that often come with letting go. For many people over 60 in the United States, possessions aren't just things, they are tied to decades of memories, milestones, and moments. The thought of giving something away can feel final and unsettling. The Propbox creates a safe, no-risk trial period. You're not saying goodbye forever, you're simply putting the item on pause to see if it still has a place in your life. When Coralyn first tried this, she started with her clothes. Her closet had slowly become a mix of daily wear, special occasion outfits, and a surprising number of pieces she hadn't worn in years. Some of them had stories: a sweater she bought on a trip to Boston, a dress from her retirement party, a jacket her late husband always liked. She couldn't bring herself to make fast decisions about them. So, into the Propbox they went, folded neatly, labeled with the date, and placed on the top shelf of her guest room closet. 6 months later, Coralyn opened the box. She realized she hadn't missed, looked for, or even thought about most of the items inside. The jacket she thought she couldn't part with? Still beautiful, but no longer her style. The retirement party dress? She admitted she'd probably never wear it again. In fact, over half of the clothes in that box went straight to donation, without a hint of the guilt she'd expected. The trial run had already loosened her attachment. The beauty of the 6-month Propbox is that it works for more than just clothing. Coralyn now uses it for kitchen gadgets she's unsure about, hobby supplies she hasn't touched in ages, and even sentimental decor pieces. It's a quiet, behind-the-scenes way to test whether something still serves her without making a permanent decision right away. And here's the part organizers often keep to themselves. The Propbox isn't just about testing usefulness, it's about breaking the emotional inertia. Once something is physically removed from your everyday environment, it loses its hold on you. Your brain stops assigning it daily significance, making it far easier to release later. For Coralyn, This method became one of the most liberating habits in her decluttering journey. It didn't feel harsh or rushed, it felt thoughtful, measured, and safe. And in a world where so many organizing methods push for decide now, toss now, this gentle approach gave her a way to protect her memories while still moving toward the clutter-free home she wanted. Secret 3. Reverse access placement. Coralyn's third secret was one she had seen organizers use in her home before, but no one had ever explained why they were doing it. She calls it reverse access placement. It's a subtle but powerful method that works almost like a built-in filter for your belongings. Instead of storing everything in the most convenient spots, you deliberately place rarely used items in the hardest to reach locations. This naturally discourages you from keeping or overusing them, while freeing up the best, most accessible space for the things you truly need every day. When Coralyn first heard this idea, it went against everything she thought she knew about organizing. In her mind, the most logical thing was to put similar items together: holiday dishes with the everyday plates, seasonal serving bowls alongside the regular mixing bowls. But this made her kitchen cabinets crowded and awkward to navigate. She often had to move heavy or fragile items just to reach the things she actually used, which became more challenging as she noticed her hands and shoulders weren't as strong as they used to be. The breakthrough came when she realized that prime space is premium real estate, and in a senior's home, that real estate needs to be used wisely. Every shelf, drawer, and cabinet within easy reach should be reserved for items that are part of daily or weekly routines. Everything else, especially things that are used only a few times a year, should be moved higher, lower, or further away. For Coralyn, the first big shift was in her kitchen. She took her beautiful but rarely used holiday platters, which were taking up an entire easy-access cabinet, and moved them to a sturdy, clearly labeled box on the attic shelf. That single change freed up a whole cabinet at waist height, which she filled with her everyday cookware. No more bending down to pull out a heavy skillet or stretching to grab a saucepan. Everything was right where she needed it, reducing strain and making cooking easier. This method didn't just make her kitchen safer, it made it feel calmer. By removing the visual and physical clutter from her most used spaces, she could move through her routines without constant small annoyances. And as she applied reverse access placement to other areas, she found the same benefits. In her bathroom, she moved spare guest towels to the highest shelf, keeping only her daily set within easy reach. In her living room, she stored off-season decor in a labeled bin in the garage, clearing space in the accessible drawers for the things she actually enjoyed seeing and using year-round. What makes this trick especially valuable for seniors is that it doubles as a built-in decision-making tool. If something is stored far out of reach and you never feel motivated to get it, that's a strong sign it may not be worth keeping at all. Coralyn found that several items she had tucked away just in case never came back down, and that made donating them completely painless. Professional organizers often use reverse access placement because it instantly makes a space feel more functional and streamlined, but they don't always explain that it's also a subtle way of helping you test your attachment to things. For Coralyn, it became more than just a space-saving tactic. It was a way of designing her home for how she lives now, not how she lived 20 years ago. And in the process, she found herself keeping fewer things, enjoying more open space, and feeling more confident moving around her home without unnecessary lifting, bending, or shuffling. Secret 4. Distraction zone clearing. Coralyn's fourth secret was something she now swears by, and it has nothing to do with starting where the clutter is worst. Professional organizers call it distraction zone clearing, and it's one of those subtle psychological tricks that can transform how you feel about your home almost instantly. The principle is simple. Instead of diving straight into the messiest area, you start with the spot your eyes land on first when you enter a room. For most people, especially seniors, the way a space feels matters just as much as how organized it actually is. If the first thing you see is a pile of papers, an overflowing chair, or a heap of shoes, your brain registers the entire room as messy, even if the rest is fairly tidy. That instant visual judgment can be discouraging, making you feel like the job is too big before you even start. Distraction zone clearing flips this reaction on its head by creating a first impression of order and calm, which sparks motivation to keep going. Coralyn had always believed she needed to tackle the worst first, which often meant starting with a cluttered corner, a packed closet, or a messy countertop. But those spots took hours to sort and rarely gave her a visible reward right away. She'd end the day exhausted, surrounded by piles that looked worse before they got better, and feel like she'd barely made a dent. The shift came when she decided to try focusing on her entryway chair, the one right by her front door. It had become a magnet for clutter: her purse, grocery bags waiting to be unpacked, unopened mail, scarves, jackets, even the occasional package she forgot to bring in. Every time she walked into her house, this chair was the first thing she saw, and without realizing it, it colored her mood. It made her feel like the whole house was behind on chores. One quiet afternoon, Coralyn set a timer for just 15 minutes and cleared that chair completely. She hung up her jackets, recycled the junk mail, filed the important papers, and put her purse in its anchor zone in the kitchen. When she was done, the space looked open and inviting. The next morning, as she came home from a walk, she opened the door and saw nothing. Just a clean, empty chair and clear floor space. She was surprised by how much lighter her whole home felt, even though she hadn't touched any other room. From then on, she applied this method everywhere. In the living room, she cleared the coffee table first, because it was the first thing her eyes fell on when she walked in. In her bedroom, she made sure the bed was neatly made, since it dominated her view. In the kitchen, she kept the counter nearest the doorway completely clear. Each small win boosted her mood and energy, giving her momentum to move on to bigger jobs without feeling overwhelmed. The magic of distraction zone clearing is that it works on both your mind and your space. By giving yourself a quick, visible success right at the start, you create a feedback loop. The room looks better, you feel better, and you're more likely to keep going. Professional organizers use this to keep clients motivated during long sessions, but they don't always share it as a standalone strategy. For Coralyn, it became a daily habit. Even on days when she didn't have the energy for full-on decluttering, she could clear her distraction zones in minutes and instantly feel more in control of her home. Secret 5. Sentimental Swap Method. Coralyn's fifth secret was one that changed the way she thought about sentimental belongings forever. She calls it the sentimental swap method, and it's a gentle but powerful approach that allows you to keep your most cherished items and enjoy a clutter-free home at the same time. Most people over 60 in the United States have decades of keepsakes, family heirlooms, gifts, travel mementos, and treasures inherited from loved ones. The problem is that when too many of these are displayed at once, the eye doesn't know where to rest. The special things lose their impact because they are competing for attention in a crowded room. For seniors, this visual overload can also be mentally draining, making spaces feel busy and hard to relax in. Professional organizers know this, but they don't always tell you the full trick they use: rotation. Instead of making you choose between keeping or tossing something sentimental, they quietly rotate display items throughout the year. This way, each piece gets its own time to shine, the visual clutter is reduced, and you never feel like you've permanently let go of something meaningful. For Coralyn, the shift started with her late husband's baseball glove, a worn, perfectly broken-in relic from his high school days. She loved seeing it, but it had been sitting in the same place for years, collecting dust alongside a dozen other mementos. It was special, but lost in the crowd. Then she thought of her mother's quilt, a warm and intricate piece she had tucked away in a closet for fear of it getting worn. She realized she could give each its own season. The baseball glove could be displayed on a small stand in the living room during spring and summer, while the quilt could be draped over her favorite armchair in the fall and winter. The effect was immediate. The baseball glove, displayed by itself with intention, drew comments from every visitor. It became a conversation piece rather than just another object in the room. When the seasons changed and the quilt took its place, the room felt fresh and renewed, yet still deeply personal. Neither item lost its importance. In fact, each became more treasured because it wasn't out all the time. Soon, Coralyn applied the sentimental swap method in other areas. She rotated framed travel photos, giving different trips their own spotlight throughout the year. She did the same with a small collection of her grandmother's china, setting out just a few pieces at a time and storing the rest safely. Not only did this free up display space, but it also made cleaning easier: fewer items to dust, fewer surfaces to navigate. The emotional benefits surprised her most. By intentionally swapping items, she got to reconnect with each one in a fresh way. Pulling out the quilt in November felt like greeting an old friend. Setting up the baseball glove in March brought a wave of happy memories. It turned decluttering from a process of loss into a cycle of rediscovery. Professional organizers often use this approach when staging homes because it creates a sense of simplicity without erasing the owner's personality. But for seniors, it's more than a design strategy. It's a way to honor the past without letting it overwhelm the present. For Coralyn, the sentimental swap method meant she no longer had to choose between keeping her treasures and keeping her home calm. She could have both, and her space, for the first time, truly reflected the best of every season in her life. Secret 6. The 10-minute night sweep. Coralyn's sixth secret may be the simplest of them all, but it's the one she now swears by every single day. She calls it the 10-minute night sweep, a quick, intentional routine that keeps clutter from building up overnight and transforms how her mornings feel. When she first heard about it, Coralyn thought it sounded almost too easy. 10 minutes? That couldn't possibly make a real difference. But professional organizers know something most people overlook. Clutter doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds up in small, almost invisible ways. A coffee mug left on the counter. Today's mail sitting unopened. A sweater draped over a chair. Each little thing doesn't seem like much in the moment, but by the next morning, they merge into a visual mess that can feel overwhelming to tackle before the day even begins. For seniors, this is more than just an aesthetic issue. It's about safety and mental calm. Cluttered surfaces can become tripping hazards. Piles on the floor can make it harder to navigate at night. And waking up to a messy home can set a stressful tone for the day ahead. Coralyn's turning point came after one particularly frustrating morning. She woke up determined to have a relaxing breakfast, but instead found herself moving stacks of magazines off the table, putting away a half-finished puzzle, and clearing yesterday's grocery bags from the counter. By the time she sat down with her coffee, she felt drained before the day had even started. That's when she decided to try the 10-minute night sweep. Here's how she does it. Right before bed, usually after washing her face and turning off most of the lights, she takes one last slow walk through her main living areas. She doesn't deep clean. She simply puts things back in their home. Shoes get placed by the door. The coffee mug in the living room goes to the dishwasher. Throw blankets are folded. The day's mail is sorted, junk in recycling, bills in their designated spot. Anything that belongs in another room gets returned there immediately. The key is speed and focus. Coralyn sets a timer for 10 minutes and treats it like a gentle race against the clock. She's not aiming for perfection, just a reset that clears the visible surfaces and main pathways. The change in her mornings was dramatic. She began waking up to a home that felt ready for her instead of waiting to be cleaned. She could make breakfast without shifting piles. She could invite a neighbor in for coffee without a moment of panic about the mess. And perhaps most importantly, she noticed her stress levels dropping. There was no longer a nagging list of little things competing for her attention as soon as she opened her eyes. Over time, the 10-minute night sweep became more than just a habit. It became part of her self-care. It gave her a sense of closure to the day, like gently putting her home to bed along with herself. On especially busy or tiring days, she'd remind herself that even if nothing else got done, those 10 minutes would still protect tomorrow's peace. Professional organizers rarely highlight this method on its own, but they often use it to keep client homes photo-ready between big projects. For seniors, Coralyn says, it's a lifeline. It keeps clutter from snowballing, reduces the risk of accidents, and ensures you start every day with a small but meaningful win. Secret 7. The future-proof closet. Coralyn's seventh and final secret was something she wishes she had learned decades earlier. She calls it the future-proof closet, a way of setting up your storage so it works for you now and will continue to work seamlessly as your mobility and strength change over the years. Professional organizers often focus on making a space look good and function well in the present. But what they rarely tell seniors is that without future-proofing, you might find yourself reorganizing, or worse, struggling with your own home, just a few years down the line. The beauty of this method is that it's not just about decluttering, It's about designing a system that will age with you, eliminating the need for major overhauls later. For Coralyn, the light bulb moment came when she noticed herself struggling to reach the highest shelves in her closet. It wasn't that she'd lost a lot of mobility, it was simply that balancing on a stool felt less safe than it used to, and heavy items felt heavier than she remembered. She realized that if she made changes now, she could prevent future frustration, and she wouldn't have to redo her closet every few years as her needs evolved. Her first step was lowering her closet rods by a few inches. It was a small change, but it meant she could comfortably hang and retrieve clothes without stretching on tiptoe. Next, she swapped out her bulky wooden hangers for lightweight, slim-profile velvet ones. This not only made it easier to slide clothes on and off, but it also freed up extra space on the rod, something she hadn't realized she needed until she had it. Then came the most important adjustment. She relocated all heavy items, like winter coats, storage boxes, and extra bedding, to waist-height shelves. This eliminated the need to lift heavy loads over her head or bend deeply to the floor, two movements that can become riskier with age. She reserved the highest shelves for very light, rarely used items like seasonal hats or handbags, and the lowest shelves for things she wouldn't mind kneeling for on occasion, like spare shoes. The transformation went beyond physical safety. Coralyn found that getting dressed each morning became faster and more pleasant because everything she needed was visible, easy to reach, and logically arranged. She didn't have to shuffle through tight hangers, dig into dark corners, or wrestle with awkward bins. She also applied the future-proof mindset to her other storage areas. In the kitchen, she moved her everyday plates and bowls to a waist-level cabinet and stored heavier appliances, like her stand mixer, on a counter-height shelf instead of down low. In her laundry area, she placed detergents and cleaning supplies within arm's reach, avoiding both bending and overreaching. What makes the future-proof closet so powerful for seniors is that it's proactive, not reactive. You're not waiting for a bad back, sore shoulders, or balance issues to force you to make changes. You're setting yourself up for comfort, safety, and independence right now. It's also a kindness to your future self, ensuring that your home remains your ally, not your obstacle, no matter what changes the years bring. For Coralyn, this was more than an organizing trick, it was peace of mind. She knew she'd never again have to climb on a chair to grab a box or awkwardly twist to reach something she used every day. And that freedom, she says, is the best kind of organization there is. Coralyn's life today looks completely different from the years when she cycled through hiring organizer after organizer. She no longer spends hundreds of dollars every few months to reset her home, only to watch it slowly drift back into disarray. Instead, the 7 hidden strategies she uncovered have become part of her daily rhythm, small, effortless habits that keep her spaces neat without feeling like she's constantly working at it. Her kitchen counters stay clear because of her anchor zones. The 6-month Propbox keeps sentimental and maybe items from clogging her storage. Reverse access placement ensures that her most used essentials are always within reach, while rarely used things stay out of the way. Distraction zone clearing gives her the quick wins she needs to stay motivated. The sentimental swap method lets her enjoy her most meaningful treasures without crowding her home. The 10-minute night sweep resets her space before the day even starts, and the future-proof closet means she's set up for safety and ease for years to come. The result? Coralyn says her home now breathes in a way it never did before. She no longer feels weighed down by visual noise or the constant mental checklist of things that need to be put away. When her grandkids visit, there's space for them to play without tripping over piles. When friends drop by unexpectedly, she can welcome them in without a moment of embarrassment. She's also discovered a financial freedom she didn't expect. By maintaining her home herself, she's cut out the recurring expense of outside help. And because she's not constantly rebuying items she couldn't find, or replacing things damaged in overstuffed storage, she spends less overall. That extra money now goes toward things she actually enjoys, like weekend trips, gardening, and art supplies for her watercolor hobby. But more than anything, Coralyn feels in control again. She wakes up knowing her home is working with her, not against her. She moves through her day without the constant distraction of clutter pulling her attention away from what matters most. Her time is spent on people and passions, not on shuffling objects from one place to another. Looking back, she realizes that the real transformation wasn't just in her home, it was in her mindset. She learned that clutter isn't just about stuff, it's about freedom, and you can take it back at any age. If even one of these secrets made you rethink your home, like this video, share it with a friend over 60, and subscribe, because your next chapter should be lighter, freer, and completely yours.